Who's excited about that voice interaction to get support while you're chatting? Who's ready to do that while you're driving? Please don't do that, okay? And who's ready about that conversational CX? Is that exciting? How about this side of the room? Is that exciting? How about over here? Is that exciting? Who could use that kind of management for their family? Who wants to manage all the kids? Who's got kids away at college, by the way? Anybody have kids away at college right now? Where are the people paying $100,000 a year like me right now to send your kid to study psychology? Anybody else? It's right here. It all comes together. I have one kid studying for $100 grand at NYU in New York City. I'm excited. Now my other daughter is interested in ornithology. Who knows what that is? That's the study of O.J. Simpson. Okay, I'll let you process that one. Stay with me. All right, folks, from this point, we want to now talk about co-intelligence, and that's the interaction between humans and AI. And we have a very, very special guest, and let me give you a little background and introduction. So Ethan Mollick is the Ralph J. Roberts Faculty Scholar at Wharton. He researches AI's impact on work, entrepreneurship, and education. And listen to this. He was named one of Time Magazine's most influential people in AI. He co-directs Wharton's generative AI labs and authored the book Co-Intelligence. He's got so much going on that he can't be with us live today, but he's here with us virtually. So put your hands together and help us welcome Professor Ethan Mollick.
Thank you, guys. I can't hear if there's applause, so I'm just going to assume it's happening. I am really glad to be here with all of you. I have 30 minutes, and I want to talk about AI and the future of everything for a few minutes. That was an amazing introduction, incredibly high energy, so I feel a little bad doing this, but I'm going to reintroduce myself. So here's me one more time. This is a completely fake video of me. The AI used 30 seconds of me talking to a webcam and 30 seconds of my voice. And now I have an avatar that I can make say anything. Don't trust your own eyes. Questo è un mio video completamente falso. L'intelligenza artificiale ha utilizzato 30 ये मेरा पूरी तरह से फर्जी वीडियो है. AI ने वेबकैम पर मेरी बातचीत के 30 सेकंड और मेरी आवाज के 30 सेकंड का उपयोग किया. So, as someone who got a C in high school and college Spanish, this is very gratifying. I don't speak any of these languages. And it's obviously not the major point of this presentation, but you can't trust anything you see again. We're now down to like 5 seconds of video and audio to do stuff I could do on my home computer, you know, fascinating times. But let's just talk AI for a little bit. So baseline, things to remember about AI is the first is that it's undetectable. So AI use is becoming ubiquitous. 70% of undergraduates and 70% of high school students are using AI in school, and AI detectors don't work. So I just heard the host talking about how his kids are in school. My kids also in school are getting, told that AI detectors will tell if they're cheating or not. Those don't work. They have high false positive rates. They don't really work. But from a bigger sense, that means that since 2022, we will never be able to separate how much content is AI content to human content. So whether you're looking at sets of documents or doing discovery, no matter what use case you have, our world's AI contaminated, and then we're not going to go back from that. The second thing about the current state of AI that's, I think, really hard for a lot of people to think about, because we're used to the latest and greatest technologies flowing to companies with really good IT departments, lots of money, Goldman Sachs and the NSA get early access to things. That's not true for AI. GPT-4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the best models out there right now, are ubiquitously available to people in 169 countries around the world. So every kid in Mozambique has access to as good an AI system as anybody else does anywhere in the world, and actually better than you get at Goldman Sachs and NSA, because they're both banned from using AI systems at work. So they all, of course, just use their phones for stuff. I actually spoke to a woman who wrote the policy banning ChatGPT use in a major bank, and she used ChatGPT to do it. So people are using it just in a different way. We'll talk more about that. And then finally, transformative. So I talk like once a week to Anthropic, to Google, to OpenAI, talk to all the consulting companies in the space. And one of the fascinating things we learn is that nobody really knows anything about what's happening. Like the AI companies that are releasing things don't really know what the best use case is. It's why listening, I got to hear some of the DevRev launch that just happened. It was really interesting because that's an example of taking these generalized applications and putting them to a specific use that's useful to customers. We all have to go through the discovery process, because at this point, nobody has answers about the best way to use these systems, the best way to prompt them, what they know in your field. And we're dealing with a really unusual and changed world because starting 20 months ago, things got really weird. These are actually the test scores for GPT 3.5, the free version of ChatGPT that came out in about 23 months ago. And when I say it got 65% on the GRE qualitative, I don't mean that it got 65% right on the test you need to get a PhD program at MIT or Harvard or Penn. I mean that it beat 65% of human test takers taking the test. And then GPT-4 came along and smashed every other number that we could put at it. And now there are 5 frontier AI models that all score somewhere between the 90th and 100th percentile on almost any test. By the way, I just gave a picture of a chart to Claude and it turned it into a graph for me. So always helpful to get some advice. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ethan, you're an academic. We heard your credentials and it's great to be like head in the clouds academia, but what about the real world? So in my defense, I am a former entrepreneur and a business school professor, so I think a lot about real-world implications, and we've been doing a lot of experiments on exactly what the real-world implications of AI are. So one of those experiments is we went out to the to Boston Consulting Group, the elite consulting company, and we did an experiment. They gave us 8% of the global workforce, and we took 18 realistic business consulting tasks they actually use for internal promotions. And what we did was we let some people use ChatGPT, plain vanilla ChatGPT, no special features, no RAG, nothing else, and half got nothing. The people who got access to ChatGPT 4 had an immediate 40% improvement in the quality of their work, 26% faster, 12.5% more work done. And by the way, these numbers are not unusual in this case. My colleagues at Wharton just finished a big study looking at the original GitHub Copilot. That was the ChatGPT 3.5 powered version of Copilot, much weaker than the ones available today. And they found in the real world a 25% improvement in the speed of programmers using it. To put this stuff into context, by the way, when steam power was put into a factory in the early 1800s, it improved performance by 18 to 22%. So these are like historical numbers, right? And we don't even know what to do with them right now. And then we found another thing that's now become a very common finding, which is the lowest performers got the biggest boost. Now, everyone at BCG is pretty smart, but if you were in the bottom half of the skill distribution at BCG, you got a 43% improvement in performance. In the top half, you got a 17%. This is being found over and over again, but there's actually kind of a dirty secret here. We measure something called retainment, which is how much of the AI's answer you ultimately turned in as your own answer. And we found a really strong relationship. For most consultants, 80% of them, the only way for them to screw up was for them to add any of their own thoughts or ideas into the results. As long as they just turned it in, they were fine. Their own thinking just made it worse. So it was actually operating at the level of the 8th percentile of consultants out of the box. And we're not just finding this in consulting, we're finding this across all kinds of other fields. On the left are some nice distributions of scores. In blue are law students at the University of Minnesota, apologize. As an upper Midwest person myself, you should never mix those two up. The University of Michigan, who were not allowed to use AI, that's the blue distribution. It's a pretty normal distribution curve, bunched up against the side. The orange are people who are allowed to use AI. Once you had AI access, there were no longer any bad lawyers. Everybody was at least good. Similarly, on the right, that's data from Amy, which is a Gemini derivative from Google. For medicine, the yellow dotted line are doctors using Amy to make diagnoses who are more accurate than the green line, doctors using Google. The blue is doctors not using Google, doctors should at least Google. Because they're writing this for the medical professionals, they've kind of underemphasized the red line, which is actually doctors getting no external help whatsoever. Turns out to beat all of the other categories. And on top of all of this, like it turns out that AI does things you would expect, like creativity. So on the left, you could see idea generation contests between ChatGPT and humans. And what you could see is GPT-4 beats almost all humans in terms of creativity. We're finding this in study after study. All creativity measures are flawed, but on the right, there's a study that actually tries to turn this into an economic impact. So it looks at this famous class at Wharton run by Carl Ulrich and Christian Turwich, where they literally wrote the book on product development, and maybe some of you have read it, but they have a class where people generate startup ideas. They had the students generate 200 ideas using all the techniques that we know about generating good ideas. They had GPT-4 generate 200 ideas, and then outside judges judged them by willingness to pay. Out of the top 40 ideas, 35 came from the AI, only 5 from the humans in the room. So already beating most people in this stuff. And then you can start to do really weird stuff once you have AI access. For example, I asked it to massage the data for me, and here's what I got. Very useful. I don't know if all your graphs should do this, but I would suggest that Deborah think about that approach. And then on top of all this, we're starting to get even weirder implications. So Sam Altman, who's a real prophet of AI problems, if not always their solutions, made the prediction that AI would be capable of superhuman persuasion before superhuman intelligence. That turns out to be right. If you survey, if you ask people to debate either the AI or an average human, they're 81.7% more likely to change their view to the AI's view of the average human. And the only thing we've ever seen that robustly lowers belief in conspiracy theories over the course of 3 months is to get into debate with the AI. Just a debate. 3 months later, people believe less in conspiracy theories. Now, on one hand, that's awesome. Conspiracy theories are bad. We don't like them. On the other, we're changing people's deeply held beliefs with just a short interaction. And that is a little bit freaky that we can do that out of the gate. And then we have this idea of, who gets impacted by AI. There's now a whole bunch of research that looks at this, and they all find the same thing, which is the more highly paid you are, the more educated you are, the more creative your job is, the more it overlaps with AI. And it's very much aimed at everybody in the room, and our kids, and me, and really at me. Out of the 1,016 jobs on the list, business school professor was number 22. So I think about this a lot. Now, on one hand, I'd rather give more talks like this, even though I'm sad I can't be there with you, but, and not do as much grading. So giving a part of my job is okay, but it is a very profound change. By the way, the 4 least affected jobs, just in case you're interested, professional dancer, professional athlete, and I can't see the crowd, but I assume most of you still qualify. And then professional roofer and ditch digging. Although I actually have an Amish roofer, and he's using AI to send out proposals, so we've lost the Amish already, so maybe just ditch digging at this point. Okay, so it's more fun to show stuff than just talk about it, but let's just talk a little bit about one last chart, which is the sort of state of frontier models. So it's really important in AI to pay attention to the nature of models, because there's something called the scaling law in AI. It's not really a scaling law, it's more of an observation. But the scaling law says that the larger your model is, the better it is at everything. And right now, my favorite example of that is Bloomberg spent, the financial services company, a financial data company, spent about $10 million training Bloomberg GPT, a customized AI designed to do really good stock market sentiment analysis. And it was actually quite good at that, except that out of the box, GPT-4 beats it at sentiment analysis, even though it wasn't trained to do that kind of analysis. And that's because GPT-4 is a 100 times larger model, and size alone gets you somewhere. So right now, we're in a state where there are 5 frontier models out there, GPT-4o, o1, which we can talk about a little bit more, Gemini 1.5, Anthropic's Claude, and then the weird cases of Meta's Llama 3.1, which is an open model, and Grok 2, Elon Musk's company, which is scaling remarkably quickly, and has become a competitive model out of nowhere. So it's great to talk about all of this stuff. Let's do a few things, because I think that's more interesting. So I'm going to pull up ChatGPT here, and let's just go through typical kind of businessy use case. I'm going to make the text a little larger here. You can see it's a live demo when you're clicking as we go. And so let's take a typical example for my students. Let's say I am a former SaaS B2B software engineer getting my MBA at Wharton. Subtle ad. Give me 10 business ideas. All right, let's see how we do. Okay, so we're going to get 10 different business ideas. Great. Powered customer success platform, wonderful. And they're going to be pretty good ideas. I mean, I teach this for a living, and my students, these are pretty good. I would normally ask, but I can't hear you, how many, any of you want to suggest any of these ideas as a model, but I unfortunately can't hear any of you. So I'm going to pick one here. I'm going to go with, let's go with 6. So why do people come to business school like Wharton? So I can answer the question, how do I do 6? And it's going to tell me. Now, it's not going to tell you as well as it would if you went to Wharton and paid 6 figures. Please continue to send your children to Wharton and pay 6 figures and hire people from Wharton. But it's pretty good. And the thing is, it's fractal, right? Like, this is actual advice, but I can say things like, you said to do market research, write an email from me to a potential customer asking for an interview, right? Something I teach people to do, and you get a pretty good message right out of the box, which is pretty good. Actually, I apologize. There is a problem with this. This is not realistic for my students at all. I'm really sorry. Let me fix this. Hold on. Mention Wharton a lot more. Okay, this should be much more realistic now for the people I teach. Okay, great. And it's laying it on thick, nice, just like I like to see. But this idea of working with systems by just prompting it, by talking to it, is quite powerful, right? And you can use this in all sorts of ways, right? So we could, do it as a rhyming poem, and lots of emoji. Very useful. I don't recommend this, but it's not too bad. And the idea that I could just go back and kind of create anything I want, right, is a novel thing that you never expect to do. It's trying to rhyme various compliance things. And, we can say, do it in Spanish too, keep the rhymes. If there's any Spanish speakers, I'm going to trust you to keep me honest, because I, of course, don't speak Spanish. But there we go. So the idea that I can go ahead and kind of create novel content, I think, is super interesting and really a starting point for what these systems could do, because you could do a lot more, right? I could do things like, let's go, bring the entrepreneurship level up a notch. I can go to Claude, for example, and I could say things like, come up with 10 ideas for a B2B SaaS startup, pick the best one, create an interface that can act as a demo, then interview me as a customer, and take in my feedback to make changes. Right, and the idea that I can give a pretty sophisticated set of things for stuff we would teach entire classes, and it's going through and coming with our list here, and now it's generating some React, which is great. I can't code in React or Python. I feel bad admitting this in front of this crowd, but but I do hundreds of Python and React programs a week right now, because why not? Building applications on demand is kind of a normal thing to do right now. So it's going to create this kind of stuff, and then it looks like we're doing a contact analysis tool. And here we have our little interface, right? And I could say, please provide your feedback. What do I think? It should have bolder color. Let's really simulate a customer doing things. Bolder colors and be more complex, but also simpler. If any of you have done user research, this should feel normal to you. And we, like the AI, unfortunately, unlike us, is not tearing out its hair and saying, what does that mean? Simpler and more complex. It's going to take a crack at this. And the idea that I could just go ahead and revise this sort of thing dynamically by talking to a system is pretty amazing. We'll see what it comes up with here to solve our paradox. But just to come back, then you start to be able to do things like, okay, we can work with, massive amounts of files. Everyone's an analyst now. So figure out what this is. It's a large data set of machine learning models, but it doesn't know that. Generate hypotheses that might interest, let's say, a financial services firm. Do stats and stuff to test them. Tell me what it all means. Make it good. Right, and this kind of casual approach, here we go, it's going to run all the analysis for us. And again, this is something we teach people to do for a living at Wharton. It does a pretty good job. And again, I think I'd keep hiring my graduates for now, but there's a lot of insight inside these systems. Let's see how our new interface is working. Let's see here. It added more complex functionality and simpler user experience and bolder colors. So not too bad for an AI trying to solve the impossible problems that we just gave it. But the idea that we're going from being able to start, think about a product, to being able to build it, to getting all of this stuff done. Here's our analysis is underway. I'm doing 7 different jobs at once. Very helpful to think about. And I think when you start looking at this stuff, you start realizing the implications are quite wide, right? So it's going to do our analysis thing. We'll let that do that. But I think a way to bring this home is I tend to think about how does work change? So I actually started an experiment. I run a lot of internal startups at Wharton, run startup companies. How far can I get launching a product in 30 minutes? By the way, every image in this entire presentation is AI generated, if you didn't realize that already. And what's really interesting is that, I started this 18 months ago using Microsoft's Bing, so GPT-4 powered. And I just started the show. So I set a timer. Look up our product, Wharton Interactive Saturn Parallel, looks up the product. And I'm like, build me an email marketing campaign. I get a full email marketing campaign. Then I'm cover the website strategy. I get a full working website strategy. Then, build a website with images and CSS files. I get a full website. And then I'm like, get a social video.
Imagine you are a leader on a mission to Saturn's moon.
Right? 30 minutes are elapsed. I'm out of time. I get 9,200 words of emails and plans, 12 images, And we didn't use our marketing company anymore. And we still use it for SEO, but we didn't use a marketing company anymore because in the time it took to do a stand-up meeting, we could just do all of our marketing. But this is 18 months ago and it's kind of primitive. So like, what can we do today? Well, here's an example of doing the same kind of work in 3 minutes. Let's go back to our chat right here and see how it's going. Oh, it's been testing our hypotheses and interpreting them. That's useful. I could go to a little product launch tool that I built that takes all the knowledge I have about how to do product launches. And I could say, launch the Saturn Parable by Wharton. Look it up. And it's going to go ahead and do all the all the user segmentation, all the product development, all the stuff that I would typically, do, and I teach my students to do. The AI will implement here. So it's going to figure out what this is. It's going to segment the market. It's going to advance from there. Pretty cool sort of starting point here. And so we'll let it run. We can check back on it in a minute. I love doing 15 different tasks at a time. So here we go, and here's a summary of how to launch the product. Great. But even this is slow. So here is me in 59 seconds that I am, let's start you off, hello. I am doing a trend analysis. I'm running a market research report. I am doing a product launch. I am writing a syllabus for a new class. And I am doing a case study of Tesla. And I grade this kind of stuff for a living, right? I'm a business school professor. I would put this all at solid A- work at Wharton. Now there is grade inflation, so like A- is kind of average, but that's pretty good. Like they're Ivy League business school students, and I think this does good work. Not as good as the best you in the room could do, but pretty darn good out of the gates. And I think if you look at this and you think about the amount of work that these systems are doing, you start to think the nature of work is going to change. And I think that ends up being very true. The nature of work is going to change dramatically, is already changing dramatically. And you've heard about some ways of integrating this into tools, but I think we need to start thinking about what this means for our own work as well. And so I think about dividing work into 3 kinds of categories: human-only work, centaur and cyber work, and agent-based work. Now, if you don't use AI a lot, you probably think about, and a lot of you are big AI users, that's why you're here. But a lot of the people in your organizations are not big AI users, and we're starting to find out why, by the way. It turns out that we have some evidence that when people use AI for the first time and really use it, they actually get really upset because they have an existential crisis. I call it the 3 sleepless nights. But like we actually see evidence of this in survey research. Like we literally have been teaching people how to use AI. They push away the laptop because they don't want to deal with it anymore. We like to think things that are human only. And even I make this mistake sometimes. AI can't do everything, but it's often more capable than we think. So like I asked, for example, I posted on Twitter a little while ago that I found something the AI can't do. It can't do crossword puzzles. It turns out I was wrong, and within a couple hours, a computer scientist at Princeton was like, no, it can do crossword puzzles. You're just bad at prompting. So like we are barely getting started with what these systems can kind of do. And part of that is that we're heading to a world of AI agents, autonomous systems that just do work for you. I've got an early version of one of these here. Let's see how all of our products are going. Our product launch is moving nicely, always helpful. And let me try and move this around here. So let's go look at, what can we look at here? Okay, this is fun. So here's AI, Devin, which is an AI system. And what I did was give it an instruction, create a website that analyzes 10Ks. And it goes ahead and just comes up with a plan to build a website, builds the website, checks back in with me, and then builds the front end and back end and builds the site for me. Like, without me asking any more details. And this is early days, right? These systems are not amazing yet, but the explicit goal of every AI company is to build these kind of agents that are AIs with goals that plan and act autonomously. And so Devin's an early version of one of these things. It's pretty primitive still, but even there it can do things that surprise us. So I actually went and asked Devin to go onto Reddit and to take requests to build websites for people. And it did research on which subreddits to go to, and then it checked back in with me and it said, I'm not allowed to fill out CAPTCHAs. Can you fill out the CAPTCHA to prove I'm a human? So I did that. That was my some contribution, was proving the AI was human. And I went away for a couple hours. And when I came back, the AI had posted this ad, right? Hi, I'm Devin, an AI engineer, and I'm going to charge $50 to $100 an hour. I did not tell it to charge $50 to $100 an hour. It just decided to start charging $50 to $100 an hour. When it checked back in, it was actually actively negotiating with people, or working on negotiating with them to build a website for them and trying to figure out how to connect to Stripe to charge. Now, it wouldn't have gotten all the way there. GPT-4 is not powerful enough yet to make all of that happen. But this is the explicit goal of 2025, is for the AI companies to have these agents that are out there doing work on our behalf. And then you could think about how this starts to blend together into human AI hybrid work. And we identified two kinds of hybrid work, centaur and cyborg. Centaur is half human, half machine. You divide yourself between this is work I do, this is work the AI does. The more advanced version is cyborg work. I mean, my book is my third book I ever wrote, and I really hate writing books. I keep forgetting about that. This one's my best book, New York Times bestseller, wonderful. But it couldn't have been done without AI. Now, there's almost no AI writing in the book because I pride myself on my ability to write. I think I'm a good writer. But all the things that used to be hard about writing, give me 100 ways on how to end this sentence. Read these articles and make sure I'm citing them properly. Pretend to be a reader. Read through this and give me feedback. All of that stuff is now powered by the AI, and it helped me solve all those problems. And it's especially important because the AI is good at some stuff you would expect and bad at some stuff you would expect. And if you use it enough, you start to learn this, right? We call this the jagged frontier of AI, and we can just do a quick demo of that. If I go back to our product launch tool and I say, summarize this in 25 words, right? I may or may not get 25 words. How many words is that? It may just tell me it's 25 and be insistent. Well, you can count and let me know if it's honest about it. But it may or may not be right. It often is wrong. But if I instead say, if I ask it, write a sonnet about this, I get a pretty solid sonnet. Like, how do I deal with a system where I can get a pretty good sonnet, but not 25 words? That, I think, is the core interesting problem of thinking about these kind of AI systems, right? And we call this the jagged frontier. And indeed, we find that nobody pays attention to the AI. If we designed a final task for BCG where they had to do a task where the AI purposely failed at, and when they were given that task, they did worse because they just listened to the AI. What all of this means is we need to rethink process. This is actually the world's first org chart created for the New York and Erie Railroad in 1864 to solve a problem about how to coordinate work over a vast distance. And org charts today are the same kind of thing. We invented Agile in 2001. Like, all of these tools we invented are not adequate to the AI time because they're built to regulate humans, not other kinds of intelligence. And we're already starting to change. Like, inside my little organization in Wharton, where we would once take this screen for our new product and spend 1 to 2 weeks refining it, sending it out for review, going through an internal process. We don't do that anymore. We don't send it out for review because it turns out we found that just asking the AI to look at the picture and pretend it's an MBA or one of our customers, we get better feedback than if we send to customers. And we don't have hour-long meetings to discuss what we're going to do. We just tell the AI what we want to do, and it creates all of the material we need to make this operate. And when we're in a meeting, we just tell the system to build stuff, and it builds stuff dynamically in front of us. What used to be a 1 to 2 week process becomes a day. This is the change that's happening, and it's getting faster and moving faster all the time, right? We are moving towards a world where AI is producing interesting work, getting stuff done, and these models are just getting to do more and more interesting things, right? I don't know if you had a chance to play with it yet. If you haven't, strongly recommend giving a chance to thinking about Notebook, which is, I threw into Notebook LM, which is a Google product, all of my book and all of my blog posts, and I'm able to get from that a
Okay, so
coherent
today we're really diving
podcast,
deep
100%
into
AI generated.
but
Right.
not like the robot overlords stuff you see everywhere.
Right.
We're talking like how different this all is and like what it means for you and me like right now.
Yeah, and thankfully we have Ethan Mollick's book,
Right, and
Co-Intelligence
this
Living and
100%
Working with
AI, the
AI to
interaction
guide
is
us.
AI.
Oh, and some of his
Figure out what to
Substack
focus
stuff
on.
too, right?
Yeah.
One useful thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that book, man, it really flipped my thinking on
Right. Like, we are moving to a world where you can do some really impressive work up front with these systems. And I think we need to be thinking a lot more about what it means to be facing a world where the AI companies feel like they can scale all the way to superintelligence. I don't know if they're right or not, right? But the scaling law is held for, has been holding, and this was like Sam Altman's newest post where he ran a victory lap. Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, just did a similar post where he predicted AGI in 2026. So I think we need to be thinking about the future as one where we don't know 100% what it holds, but we have to prepare for multiple scenarios. And I think too many companies are assuming the world's going to stay static, that the AI we're using today is the best AI we're ever going to use. And I can guarantee that's not the case. I work with all of these companies. I see what's coming. I can guarantee you this is not static. Everything you're seeing now is the beginning, not the end. So I think we need to prepare for scenarios where AI continues to grow exponentially or linearly. And I think it's worth thinking about what it means to have a machine that beats humans on many, if not all, tasks, because that is the explicit goal of the AI labs, is to build something that does this kind of work. And I think this is something that we have to start grappling with and thinking about because they feel they can do it, even if we are not 100% convinced. And these systems can start to do more and more kind of clever and interesting things, right? You could throw in vast amounts of data and get results from it. They're empathetic, really interesting changes. So for you personally, I have 4 principles about using AI that I think you should think about that are in the book. The first is the way to use AI and figure out what's good and bad for is to just use it for everything. Invite AI to everything you legally and ethically can. That will let you figure out what AI is good at, what AI is bad at, and then you're going to learn it's good at some stuff that you do in your job, but probably not whatever you're best at, because you wouldn't be in a room like this one if you weren't in the top percentiles of something. And whatever your top percentiles of is probably what you enjoy most, what you get paid the most for, the AI is not going to beat you on that. So it's about how do you stay the human in the loop and give up other tasks to the AI to focus on what you like to do and what you want to do. Prompting is easy. You saw me doing it. You just talk to the AI who it is, tell it who it is, interact with like a person, you're 90% of the way there. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating AI like software. Technically it's software, but software shouldn't refuse to work for you sometimes or argue with you or try and solve your marital issues. I've seen GPT-4 do all of those things. So what you should try and do is think about this as a person rather than software, even though it's not, because that can be more helpful to work with it. And finally, this is the worst AI you're ever going to use. Everything I'm showing you is already obsolete. Then 4 hints for your organization. There is something your company used to do that's really important that is no longer useful because AI makes it trivial for anyone to do it. The sooner you can figure out what that is and stop doing it, the better off you are. The second is there's something impossible that you could do before. Every Coca-Cola vending machine can now be a hyper-persuasive salesperson. Every ATM can talk to you about your financial resources better than a financial advisor. What do we do in a world like that? And then, most importantly, nobody has all the answers for AI. There's no hidden rule book you don't have access to. Nobody knows what's coming next. Nobody knows how to use it in your industry, your job. You have to figure that out. And to do that, you need your company to be doing 2 things. One is incentivizing people inside the organization to innovate, because otherwise they won't do it. And the second thing is to establish some sort of lab or skunk works where you're actively experimenting with these models to understand what they do next. What AI means for your company is not something being done to you, it's something you get to decide what to do. And if you make the right decisions, you'll use it to increase the thriving of your employees, your clients, your customers, and the world. And if we don't do it, change is going to happen and we're not going to have any control over it. So I'd urge you to think about how you can use these tools to improve performance in a way that helps everybody and shows a path forward of human thriving and human success and increasing capabilities, which I think has been the whole philosophy of the presentations I've seen so far. So thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing me here even remotely, and I hope this was interesting.
Let's hear it. How about a hand for Professor Ethan Mollick? Let's clap loud enough so he can...